The idea that money can't buy happiness can't be further than the truth today. We have games like CSGO where you basically play for free and you pay with dopamine loot boxes that you spend your hard-earned money on. Or we get remasters like Oblivion where we already have good games that are just redone again. But let's think about early access games. You ever wanted to spend half price on a game that'll probably never be updated again? A game that you become a shell of who you are? You spend 2,000 hours playing the game? And no updates happen? Oh, just me? Sorry, I'm projecting. Anyways, this video is about RuneScape Dragonwilds, a brand new Jagex launched game that is early access, and it pretty much is what it is. It's a game about RuneScape, basically Valheim reskinned, and I'm here to give you my good impressions, bad impressions, and the ugliest impressions of the game. My name's Ubaru, and let's get right into the video. Let's talk about the good. It's a RuneScape game. Granted, it's kind of not really a RuneScape game at the same time. Like I said before, it's basically Valheim reskinned with a lot of UI updates, and to be honest, it's pretty cool. Now, I want to give it credit where it's due. It's basically like a modded version of Valheim, at least to me. And how it functions, there's so many great things about it. Like, first off, it's $30. $30 US just to buy this game, and it is an early access title, which means it's not this game that's claiming to be magnificent and spectacular. It's a game that's going to be built with the community that it's building while you play it. So they've already taken a lot of advice with problems in the game from the community and are already actively making choices, unlike some other RuneScape games that you may or may not know of. The dev team is on it, and that's really good to see, especially as a brand new game. You don't want to have a game where the dev team doesn't listen to the community because they're the people who are supporting you, and it's really important. So I think that's a very good positive part of the game. Now, there's a couple story quests that pay homage to the game, like Rune Mysteries, Dragon Slayer, and a few other ones, and I think it's cool to pay homage in that way, although it's not really a fully fleshed out story, something like Valheim, where you're going through every tier, killing every boss. This is a very early stage game that I think has a lot of potential. In terms of the atmosphere of the game, it's really, honestly, pretty good. It's a very low poly, sort of like expansive game that has a lot of different biomes and different items inside of these, and it's very immersive. RuneScape Dragonwilds is a static map design, which basically means it's one map. Everybody knows exactly where everything is. This is good for if you need to find resources online, but it can be a positive or a negative depending on what you like. In games like Valheim and Minecraft, they have an endless generated seed, which basically means that the world can be multiplicatively generated whenever you want, and it kind of creates this ability to hop in whenever you'd like versus a static map, which can be a positive or a negative depending on survival games that you like these. Let's talk about the UI of the game. Honestly, it's very beautiful and simplistic. I'm actually quite a big fan of it. Hunger, Thirst, and Rest are in a really good placement in the bottom left. However, we'll get more into those systems in the future, but the UI of it just looks fantastic. All of the main actions that you'll be using while you play are in the bottom right of your HUD, and you can see additional actions with weapons you equip, which is really nice, and there's no hidden actions or abilities, so there's nothing really to fret about or get overwhelmed with in the game. This way, you won't get any encumbrance from your playstyle, and you can kind of just enjoy the game as it is. And it's really just simple. Like, it's a very simple system, and the UI every time you get a skill pop-up is just honestly fantastic. I think they took a page out of the book of games like New World from Amazon Studios that I've played quite a bit. They're trying to highlight every time you do get a level up, and they give you firework animations like while you're in RuneScape if you've ever leveled up. It's basically the same way. When you do level up, signaling the dopamine and congratulates you on your effort from putting in the work. All right, let's get into the combat of the game. It's super simplistic. There's nothing really too overcomplicated about it. You swing with a left mouse button and you block with a right mouse button, and you can do a special attack ability by clicking down your middle mouse. But other than that, there's nothing too crazy about the combat. Again, this is very similar to how Valheim operates. There's a lot of really keen similarities between the games, but there's obviously more UI and different updates that we'll see throughout the video. Blocking and your armor bonuses are very important to how you mitigate damage in the game, and it's really important that you lock in and make sure that you don't have underpowered gear. In RuneScape Dragonwilds, there's a power-up that you basically get every time you upgrade into a tier that gives you basically overshield, and you're going to want to top this up before you go into any boss fight because it's free health. And you don't want to die in this game, otherwise it's a straight corpse run back to where you've been. Whenever you crush these stones, you start to get radiation poisoning, and if you hit a certain level, that means that you're just going to be taking damage. This is keen with stuff like poison in the game, bleeding, and radiation. As far as I know, I don't think there's any other mechanics because there isn't any cold biomes, and it's really just poison, bleeding, and radiation. Some of the coolest things about this game are the boss fights. Now, if you've ever played RuneScape, you'd know that one of the best Slayer bosses that you could fight is the Abyssal Demon. Now, these are scattered all throughout the game in different biomes. They have a very similar attack to RuneScape where they'll teleport all around you. And it's really cool that they're paying homage to the game. They're staying true to the kind of abilities and ideas around the combat system, and it keeps you on your feet. Some of these bosses, like the Abyssal Demon, will give you special items that you can make created Masterworks with, which we'll get into later in the crafting section. But it really is cool because it keeps you immersed in the game, and it shows you that there are items that are inside of the world of RuneScape in RuneScape Dragonwilds. Another part of the good is the magic abilities in this game. Unlike Valheim, there's no other specific power-ups other than buffs that you can use that you create through potion making skill. But in this game, there's magic abilities that you'll unlock with rune crafting and other skilling. Stuff like Rock Explosion, where you can blow up a bunch of mining resources and they give you a bunch of resources that you don't have to spend time with mining. Like you could turn bones to peaches, which is also calls back to regular RuneScape magic spellbook. One of my favorites is Wind Step. You cast it and it allows you to hop around and jump super high. The jumping in this game isn't very substantial, so it's very important that you actually utilize this very early on. It is one of the earlier steps that you will unlock, so it's very important that you do use it. This will give you other items that you need inside of dungeons that are basically inaccessible without using it, and it's pretty cool. It's just a pretty cool step to unlock, and it makes it feel like the game is expansive and you're a part of it. So I really enjoy these magic spells. The building in this game is amazing. It's very akin to Valheim. I personally love it. I think it was a little bit clunky at first because I didn't really understand what I was doing, but then I realized you can use this special spell from the magic abilities called Eye of Oculus that allows you to basically go around your house and you can craft from there, which is pretty intuitive. I don't think we have anything like that in games like Valheim or any other survival crafting games like that, so we have so many cool spells that I guess would be deemed overpowered in other games, but because it is a single multiplayer 4-player game, it's really just useful. There's nothing you can really take advantage of with these overpowered spells, so hats off to Jagex for that. Bulb, honestly pretty huge. I would say one negative to building is there are these things called invasions in the game, which a goblin or whatever kind of horde of the biome that you're in charge you and try to blow up your house by smashing it. They'll break the walls around your house, try and mess it up, and I don't think we really have any active traps that we can use, like spikes. We can't dig moats into the ground because we can't dig into the actual atmosphere of the game yet. I think something that'd be really helpful would be traps or anything that allows us to defend our base better. The last part of the good section, it's a RuneScape game. Now, it doesn't look like a RuneScape game, but it operates basically under the same function as other items and things you would get back when you used to play. So there's gonna be things like flax, there's gonna be things like abyssal whips. There's really creative ingenuity with things like including herbs and other stuff that you will see that you play the game that really just takes you back on a nostalgic trip, and it makes you feel good when you get these items because it recalls to memories that you remember getting these things, like picking flax or cleaning herbs that you know what they are. It feels good because you can make things that actually live in the world of RuneScape, even though it's not really RuneScape. It's kind of nice. All right, now we're gonna get into more of the negative section of the game. We're gonna get into the bad. There's some good in here, but it's mostly starting with the bad. So like I said before, it's basically Valheim reskinned with a few UI updates, but it isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. If I put a dollar store steak in front of you and then a 3-star Michelin restaurant steak prepared with all the fixings, which one would you pick at a similar price point? You would want the better steak, ideally. It doesn't mean that the game can't be improved. I just think if you're comparing games like Valheim, that is early access, I think, or it was released and then it gets continual updates, to games like RuneScape Dragonwild, you're gonna make yourself disappointed because it is a game that is early access, which means you get what you pay for. It's $30. It is what it is. You just kind of got to live with it. Another negative would be tiers matter. You want to upgrade your tiers as fast as possible, whether it comes to tools, armor, weapons, whatever it will be. You want to upgrade as fast as possible because it's super important, and the lower tiers you are, you will die as fast as possible if you are progressing very fast. Okay, let's talk about dungeons, okay? I will say the concept of dungeons are honestly amazing. I think the design is really cool, but they also feel hollow at times. It's a lot of exploration. I enjoy the atmosphere of the space, and there's lots of traps and puzzles, and it keeps you really immersed, but the problem is I feel like the mobs inside of there there, there's not that many. And then when there is a lot, you kind of get overwhelmed because it's kind of like WoW, where if you aggro something really far away and it pulls a bunch of people, you're gonna get messed up if you're in the wrong biome. So you gotta be really careful about how you traverse through these dungeons. I do like the theme of ancient technology and how it coincides with the teleporters that you do unlock while you do go through these dungeons. And this gives you the ability to teleport all around the game through using stuff in the rune crafting table like law runes. I will say there needs to be an update to the loot table that you get through these dungeons, because you get rocks, rune essence, random like stuff that's not really applicable, and I feel like the rewards for you going through are not really worth the time, because the only reason to really go in these dungeons is to get vault shards to create higher level weaponry, and vault cores, which basically unlock more armor, more teleporters, and like at that point, like you basically don't need to go in there. But you can farm them over and over again, unlike other games like Valheim, where if you go through at one time, it's basically done. So I will give credit to that. You basically just have to re-go through these dungeons. I just feel like it's too repetitive and there isn't really much you can do at that point. So I think it could use a little bit of an update. Here's one big pet peeve. There's a lot of unfinished skills. Like, I get that it's early access, but the game just feels unfinished with the skilling. You can use the melee skill, which is pretty thought out, but you can't use range or magic. And when you have magic staffs in the game and bows and arrows, it doesn't really make sense why we can't level these up, at least getting us to the point where we can train XP through doing it, because it feels like a hindrance. And I basically halfway through just realized I'm only going to use a bow and arrow when I want to go hit something from far away, and that's about it. Magic skill, we have magic abilities, but we don't have any actual offensive magic spells that are going to be helping us. We have a wind and fire attack with the stabs, and it feels kind of underdeveloped. And with the bow and arrow, it's basically just you're getting upgrades, and it's still cool. Like, I still enjoy using these things, but it feels like using it to level up just feels like a waste. So I just chose to do melee for the rest of my build through playing. Also, the skills top out at 50, and that's it. You basically get a hard cap at 50, and then you can't go past those, except range and magic, where you get a tome after completing the main quest, and it gets you to level 20 in each one of these. So it's a little bit weird considering we can level these up through XP tomes that we get through the game, but outside of that, we get nothing. So, like, we can't even train it. At least allow us to train the skill to 50 if we can get it through XP tomes. It does make me excited to see what the further skills will be that we get throughout the game whenever the updates happen. Obviously, a bunch of people were like, what do we get when we get to 99? We don't know yet. We might get skill capes, we might get bonuses, we might get further expansions to things, and I'm excited for that. I think personally, the skill of runecrafting needs more love. Now, granted, runecrafting gives you the ability to use magic inside of the game, but other than that, all you're basically doing is crafting runes and making those over armor charges, and it's not really that amazing. In the future, I'd love to see skills like farming, agility, and herb lore. We already basically have herb lore in the game because we can make potions at the cauldron, but I'd like to see the ability to make more expansive potions. We have minor pots inside of the game, but I'd like to see like med level, higher level pots, things that give you actual bonuses to look forward to, and I think that would be pretty cool. Okay, let's talk about the negatives of novelty items. Now, I've gotten to 40 cooking. Again, most people have probably gotten their cooking to max level because you just get a bunch of water, making your person look like he's, you know, doing unsavory things, and then you cook them on like 9 campfires, and you immediately get the highest level of cooking you possibly can. And it allows you to make a chef's hat. But the chef's hat has absolutely no purpose other than a cosmetic item. Again, a bunch of stuff in the game is basically just building components to build your house. If you want to have a more decorative experience, it's pretty cool, but I just felt like I wasted materials making some of these things, like the capes. You get cool cape schematics by going around the game and finding hidden blueprints, which is really nice. I really love that touch to the game. But other than that, it's kind of just like, it makes me feel like I'm wasting my materials for things that I unlock just because they are there. So I'm hoping that the chef's hat and other things give you bonuses that maybe decrease the amount you need to craft food, or give you bonuses like duplicates of food. It'd be way better. If we create items, let's please give them a purpose, okay? Or at least just state that they're a novelty item. When you disintegrate your inventory, you do not get the resources back, so it feels like a waste, and let's just work on that. All right, let's talk about resources in the game. The item stacks inside of the game that you put in storage in your inventory are a little bit convoluted. Some stacks will be 20, some will be 30, some will be 50. There's no continuity with items stacking in the game, and it's a little bit infuriating for space, considering you think you'll be okay, but no, I have 20 stacks of fur, 30 stacks of this, 50 stacks of water. It's like, it's just goofy. I think we need to all have a universal stack limit. And then if it's like a quest item or something, just keep it like 1 in the inventory. I think storage could use a bonus upgrade. I don't really know how it would be ideal to do that. I use the sort function by clicking spacebar, and it basically just shifts everything into like alphabetical state, but it still is a little goofy because some quest items just basically go to the front or go to the back, and it's not fully fleshed out, but the idea of storage is there. It just needs a little bit of tweaking. I'd also like to talk about how it's harder to get lower tier resources in the game. It seems like it's really annoying to pick flax because it's so spread out, and because it is a static map, you're not going to have random resources like you would in Valheim that's easier to get. It's basically a static spawn of you just going around and waiting until it respawns. So it feels really spread out, and it takes a really long time to kind of do these runs. So I think if they were more condensed into specific areas, it would help you a lot more doing your runs. And yeah, I just think like it's way easier to get higher tiered things than it is to get lower tiered in terms of time investment and time spent. I just think if it was mitigated a little bit better, that would be better for all of us. Although I do wonder if, because the flax being so spread out, it kind of allows you to move around the game and experience it. So if that was the intention, then it worked for me, but I don't know if I necessarily like it. I think it could be improved a little bit better. Okay, now we're going to be going into the ugly parts of RuneScape Dragonwilds. Let's get to the bugs. There's been an explicit amount of bugs that I've experienced while playing, like going through secret areas inside of dungeons and not being able to come back through them. Granted, there are specific fake walls that you can basically smash through with a pickaxe, but I went through a waterfall in one of these dungeons, and I basically couldn't get out until I hit the unstuck button that is akin to a lot of early access games where if you get stuck in something, the dev doesn't really know what to do. You're not just gonna sit there, right? So you just have to hit unstuck. But as soon as I hit unstuck, I go to the beginning of the game. That's bad design, okay? Like, if I didn't have a teleporter down in front of my Rift dungeon, I would have just went straight back to the beginning of the game. And I get it. It's like launch day. They haven't probably QA tested everything with the unstuck and getting stuck in places, because when you're developing a game, you understand all the quirks. You're not gonna be a new player who's basically coming in. But the problem is that if you get stuck somewhere going to the beginning of the game, that could like ruin you. And especially if you do PvP, you'll basically instantly die. So it's not a good thing if you do that. And yeah, I think if we have unstuck, it should basically take us back like a minute to where we were. And I hope that doesn't get abused where people will basically go down to somewhere, mine it, and then hit unstuck and be like up somewhere. Because I know that was a problem in New World, but I'm hoping it doesn't become a problem here. I do respect that the team at Jagex is trying to update stuff as soon as possible, and they're listening to the community, and we appreciate that. So thank you so much to the dev team. They're working overtime to balance out and upgrade or change any things that we have problems with. So we appreciate you hearing us, and we do feel heard. One key bug that I had a problem with was when we first started mining in the game. If you get to a certain level in mining, it gives you a better chance of getting rare resources like opals, sapphires, jades, things that you get in normal RuneScape from mining. But these are very important for the Mastercraft builds that you do be making. So the problem was you basically would mine all this stuff, and once you got to a certain level, you couldn't get any of these rare gems anymore. So that got fixed, thankfully. But for the first 2 or 3 days, I've been wanting to make these Mastercrafts, and I just couldn't because I trained too much. I was too much of a nerd, so I couldn't do it. But they fixed this, thankfully. This is why the dev team is really working hard, because they want to make sure that the experience is good and that we're in good favor with the community. So thank you so much. Now let's get into the crafting. I like to say that the crafting bench basically becomes useless after like tier 2 or tier 3. You make a smithing anvil, and that's where everything that is important in the game for late game stages, like all of the master crafts, all of the recipes you unlock through going through dungeons, this is basically where everything gets made. The crafting bench becomes irrelevant at a certain point, and it just feels like, why is this in my house anymore? Just feels kind of cluttered and goofy. I would like more content to be added to this. In Valheim, you basically need both, because one side kind of gives you like bows and arrows, the other side gives you like metal armor. It just feels like you don't need it past a certain point. So I would like it if there was more upgrades, or at least it was balanced out a little bit. That would make a lot more sense. Let's talk about the penalties, okay? Hunger and thirst and rest are way too overtuned right now. It is almost impossible to ignore the problems with it, because as soon as you die, again, going on a corpse run, back to go pick up your stuff, you lose a huge chunk of that, and it can decrease your stamina, it can decrease your health regen. And when you're trying to pick up your items, you don't want to die again. So it's just like, it's just an incessant need of basically needing to keep food and water at your base. So as soon as you die, re-up immediately, go sleep it off, re-up again, and then like go out and hopefully you don't die again. I just think the game would be so much more enjoyable if we didn't have to micromanage the hunger and thirst so much. So something to consider, but I think they started to update this. I would like to say there's not really too much penalties to dying. In games like Valheim, you will get some XP and some points in your skills, and I think we don't really have any docking for that. It just seems like the game recently came out and we don't really have penalties for it. So to me, it might be a little masochistic, but I just feel like there's no negative to dying. You only lose a little bit of durability on your gear, but it's pretty easy to fix it with a spell. You don't even need to use resources. Maybe they could make a more hardcore version of it where you do have penalties and you lose XP in your skills, because it's pretty easy to train these skills right now because there is a hard cap of 50 and you can't go above that. So maybe something to consider. I don't know. Things to think about. Now let's talk about Masterworks. Probably the coolest stuff in the game. You get stuff like the Granite Maul, the Abyssal Whip, the DFS, the Staff of Light. There's so many cool items that you can unlock in the Masterworks, but some of them are goofy and make no sense. The Granite Maul, you unlock this in the 3rd tier region and it is horrible for endgame. Okay, it is a 3rd tier weapon and the special attack isn't even close to the Granite Maul in the regular game. What is the deal with that? I just feel like there's certain things that do so well, like the Abyssal Whip. Like you get this cool animation and you get like the whip kind of attack, and it kind of has to live in this world, so it's not truly how an Abyssal Whip works, but because it has that lash special attack, it has something somewhat similar to what you could see from like an Abyssal Demon or like an Abyssal Whip. It's somewhat similar in the world of that, right? But we don't have special attacks for weapons like the Staff of Light. You know, magic skill isn't even really like fully fleshed out. There's no ranged weapon that I saw through doing my playthrough. It just seems like there's a lot of missed opportunities with these Masterworks, and I feel like at the level of the game that it's at, they should be end game. I feel like I spent more materials making the Granite Maul than I needed on any other thing, and it feels stupid because it's a 3-part item for a quest. It's just basically, that's it. Like, it's a 3rd tier weapon, and I made an Iron Warhammer for 1/3 of the resources, and it was way better. So, didn't really like that. I just really want to see the Granite Maul hit swiftly, like the special attack inside of old school RuneScape or regular RuneScape. It just seems like to make it, there's no point. So, I would just skip doing that if you're gonna play, even though it is a quest. Or they just need to rescale it. If they just rescaled it to where it was higher tier, that would be amazing. Okay, let's go into special recipes and things that you can unlock and craft in the end game. This is gonna be super important to talk about. So here's a weird thing. With set effects in the game, it doesn't really make sense how every time you upgrade a tier, there's no upgrade to your set bonus effects. Basically, from tier 1 to tier 4, you have the same set bonus effects after you craft a set of armor, and it doesn't upgrade. Like for the range armor, you basically get 40% faster sneak bonus, and that's it from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And it feels like there's no point if you're going for set effect bonuses other than to just get armor rating bonus. I feel like there needs to be more set effects, or there needs to be more bonuses for the armor you're making, because what's the point if it's going to be the same thing every time? It just feels a little convoluted. What schematics you get from vaults or dungeons inside of the game, it feels kind of goofy as well. There's like tiers of armor that you get. You speak to these plinths inside of the dungeons, and they're supposed to give you special recipes for armor and other things like weapons that you can get. And some of them are lower tiered, some of them are higher tiered, and you'll unlock these and they cost way more than it costs for the tier equivalent, and they have exactly the same stats with the same bonuses of gear from the ones before. So it just feels kind of goofy because they give you like durability bonuses and stuff that's not really super important. It just doesn't feel like it's worth spending the resources to make these other than the cosmetic effect of them looking cooler. I don't know. I just think that they could improve those. They could scale those better. I think that that's something that could be fixed. So something to consider. I don't know if they will, but that's life. Another cool thing would be to get like set effect items, like inside of old school RuneScape, there is a serpentine helm, which basically basically, if you wear it, you'll be immune to venom or poison. And I think for places like the Bloodblight Swamp in the game, which is basically like 90% you're going to get poisoned if you stand there for more than like 2 seconds. If you don't have an anti-poison, you just can't go through there. So if you had items like that that just constantly degrade, or like you could put anti-poisons in the helmet or something, I think that that would be cool. I think we need to see more items from RuneScape and in the world. It would be a lot nicer, and it would feel like it's more important to use these things because of the status effect. Or, I mean, you could just make it like one of the hardest things to make in the game, and then it becomes best in slot. At the same time, I feel like it affects the set bonuses of the other things in game. So I think it could be like a unique, like, you know, how people will use like a headlamp in game. So it could be like something like that, like it's a utility item that you use. But I would like that. I think it would be cool. I think that's a really big shout if you guys can do that. But yeah. All right, let's get into one of the most annoying parts of RuneScape Dragonwilds, the invasions and the dragons. Now, the frequency at launch was horrible. Like, you'd basically spend one day at a time, and then the dragon would come around and do a drive-by on you and just hawk to a spit on that thing. But that thing is my head and all my friends' heads, and I get instantly poisoned and just die over and over again. Including the fact that the building that we actually created for our base had a roof, and it could still hawk Tua through the center of the roof. Like, it makes no sense. So that was annoying. I don't want to spoil it, but basically in Dragon Slayer, you slay a dragon. And I think if you slay the dragon, it should go away. It should just go away, man. Why is it still there spitting on us? I don't get it. The goblin invasions, again, I think those could be fine-tuned, but there's no way to really protect your base other than putting a fence around it, and it just seems kind of goofy right now. I think the invasions got tuned back a little bit, same with the dragons, but I think it's getting there. Overall, I've spent about 40 hours playing RuneScape Dragonwilds, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but there's not really a lot in the game. I've went around and played with a bunch of other friends as well on their saves, and tried to catch them up to where I was at, which is you get to tier 4, and then you kind of get hard stuck at the game because there's nothing really else to do. Now, they're going to be adding more skills, they're going to be adding more abilities, more level ups, and I hope that they take the advice and really run with it. I think a lot of the community wants to help build this game, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm mainly an old school RuneScape content creator, and I loved playing the game. I love survival games like Valheim, and this is very much a game like that. If you want to support Jagex, definitely cop the game. It's only $30, and I got 40 plus hours of enjoyment out of it. Just don't speed run it. Just have fun, enjoy the game. Again, it's an early access game. You can't be too mad at it. Just play it, enjoy it. Hopefully they do updates soon. I just hope they update the game pretty fast before the hype for it dies down. My name's ubaru. Thank you again for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. How long have I recorded? 40 minutes? God damn. 40 minutes? God damn.